Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello, hello. I have a haircut. I don't know if you guys noticed
Oh,
at all.
damn. Is DC open for haircuts?
Yeah, Virginia. Well, DC and Virginia. I don't know what's going on in DC.
Okay.
Virginia has moved
Virginia's
into phase
open.
two. Yeah,
Ah,
Virginia has
nice.
opened up. So today I went with my face mask to Great Clips to get a haircut. They are following all the protocols, and it just feels good not to have hair stabbing me at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy about that.
Mm. All right. Well, that's all the news for today.
That's
We
it.
are we were expecting a lot of news. I think everyone was expecting a lot of news in the Blizzard world and the Hearthstone world because Hearthstone's supposed to get an expansion on June 10th, and if you look at the calendar, June 10th is in 3 days. So we expected to hear something. We expected to know what's going on, and so far we have nothing. They have not released a statement. They've not made a blog post. We don't know anything about what's happening on June 10th, except that the adventure that's related to this latest expansion, which is Ashes of Outlands, is supposed to happen. Um, does it have an arena rotation? As you know, it's about around this time that arena rotations usually happen. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Does it have any updates to Battlegrounds? We do know that with this expansion launch, or I don't even know if this has already happened, but are the new heroes available for like people who don't pay?
Yep.
Oh,
They've been available.
so they've been available. Okay, so we don't know
Yeah,
anything. So okay, so maybe nothing's happening with Battlegrounds on June 10th, or maybe something is because the Battlegrounds meta has. I mean, I guess it's changed since they like released the heroes in Soralisk, but
It's changed. It's just even more tilted towards macros and soralisks now, which is
yeah,
not a good thing.
yeah.
It's
So
caused me to play Battlegrounds less. The fun factor isn't there. The skill factor is still there. It's just a different kind of skill. But yes, that's where we're at for Battlegrounds.
yeah, so maybe they'll be doing something to shake up Battlegrounds as well. But again, we don't know. We just know there's a big patch, and we do know things are supposed to be happening, but no one knows what's happening. So we can't really talk about what's happening. So instead of talking about what's happening, and we have talked about a lot in the last couple of episodes about what we want to happen with Battlegrounds, let's talk about what's happening in Arena, which we haven't really talked about for a little bit because arena's been kind of just where it is, right? There's been no micro adjustments, there's been no news, the meta is kind of where it is, which is okay, not great, not terrible. And people are just kind of riding this one out, I think, for the most part. What in this upcoming rotation would you expect, or would you think will kind of give Arena a shot in the arm? Like, not fix everything, obviously. They can't do that with just a rotation. But what would you want to see in the Arena rotation-wise?
Well, okay. We have to address the elephant in the room, which is Demon Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Demon Hunter is the one in which, if we're looking at what they've historically done with these rotations, Demon Hunter is the one that is the wrench in the system. You can't just do whatever rotation you please because Demon Hunters need cards. They need cards in order to operate. So, what do I want to
Okay,
happen?
so Ashes of Outland is not going anywhere, basically,
Yeah,
is what
exactly.
we're saying.
Exactly, yes. To boil it down, if they remove Ashes of Outland and also the Demon Hunter Initiate cards, then Demon Hunters were just I don't know. So I'm gonna say, knock on wood, it's impossible for them to do that because
Mm-hmm.
Demon Hunters need cards. So assuming that that's there, look, I think just by rotating out Descent of Dragons and rotating out like any of the
Really? Descent
newest
of
sets.
Dragons is it's technically possible to rotate out? I thought that was just built into the game now.
Yeah, right. It's basically classic 2.0 at this point. If you're not getting tyranted, you're not playing arena.
I mean, the last time we saw a meta without Descent of Tyrants, Descent of Tyrants, Descent of the Twin Tyrants.
You know what? No. You know what you were doing.
The last time we saw a meta without Descent of the Dragons was a meta without classic cards. So they're about as enshrined in Hearthstone Arena as classic is these days.
That was a very Freudian slip.
Oh God.
But yes. So just by getting rid of that, I think is going to be a lot better, because a lot of the problematic cards come from Descent of Dragons, and in fact, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, which, like, we've always had a philosophy, legendaries don't matter.
Yeah.
Which has been true all the way up to Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Even when, people were complaining about Lich King, you didn't see Lich King even a small fraction of the time that you see Dragon Queen Alexstrasza right now.
Yep.
And that's because of not just the rate that you are able to draft it, which is proportionally higher than other legendaries for some reason. Like, Dr. Stein did all of these numbers and calculations. He's just like, by the way, Blizzard made it just so you can draft Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, also Zephyrus. It's like they just wanted the RNG factor to go up. He was just like, factoring in the fact that these are auto picks. Zephyrus and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza are still offered much higher than they're supposed to be. And then, of course, with Dragon Queen, all of the discovers. And not just the Dragon discovers. Now you can get stuff like the Draconic Lackey into a Dragon Discover, into Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, into... and thus, this is why we call it the created by meta. So, just by getting rid of that, I think it would help out a ton and help out and reduce a lot of the frustrations that people are feeling with the meta right now. So just getting rid of that, I think it'll help out a lot. Yeah, and it's crazy for me to say that.
And not only are we getting rid of Descent of Dragons, we're also getting rid of SOU and Rise of Shadows. Like, presumably they're rotating all these out. Because what they normally do in rotation is get rid of everything you've seen before. The only time they haven't gotten rid of everything you've seen before was for Descent of Dragons, to keep it in twice in a row. 2 metas running. Otherwise, every other rotation has been rotated away after 1 rotation. So, you're going to get rid of the entire power spike. Not just the created by, not just Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, not just Twin Tyrant, but... if we remember going back, and I guess it doesn't matter now because it's not a standard anymore, but the 3 expansions prior to that were nice. We liked them. They created a much more normal and balanced arena. And I don't even remember what their names are, because they were so nice that they did not annoy me enough to be seared into my memory. So maybe some of those expansions will be coming back. Maybe some old favorites that will have potentially, like, interesting interactions with Demon Hunter, like the Inspire mechanic in particular. Maybe that'll come back. Maybe after having been in such a slow, like, purposefully, very obviously slow, like, easy to predict that it was going to be slow kind of meta, Blizzard says, oh, well, let's take it in a more aggressive direction, right? And then stick back things like the Grand Tournament or GVG or something from, like, super old school. But the one expansion that I actually really want to come back now, and it's the expansion that I probably hated on more than any expansion, is Un'Goro. And that's just because I miss Un'Goro. I feel like they did a really good job with making interesting cards for the arena in Un'Goro. And at the time when it was done, it was way too powerful. But now, it's not way too powerful anymore. So now, it's an interesting time, I think, to see what a balanced other set of cards to complement Un'Goro would make Un'Goro look like. So, yes, Primordial Drake would be back, but we've lived with Twin Tyrant for how many months now? Like, Primordial Drake is going to be fine. And it's an epic. Like, the... what was the 3/5, the Tar Creeper? right? At the time was just like stop everything. Well, now we have that 4 mana thing that has even more health and more stopping power. Um, so I don't know. I think Ungoro is in a good spot to be revisited.
Yeah, I think so. Angora was the original power creep, in which everyone was looking at meteors and primordial drakes, and wasps, and like gastropods, and they were just like, oh, this is like insane, right? But you put them into today's meta, and you're just like,
Meh.
these are nice, cute cards. These are fine. But yeah, so I think if we were to just go back to that, we would very much so appreciate it. It's fine, and sprinkle in some witchwood, maybe, just
Mm.
innocent, plain old expansions with boring cards that weren't used in constructed anyways, right? So why do you need these OP arena cards that are literally never used in constructed?
The one
For what
expansion I
reason?
want to never come back, and that's only because of one thing: Spellstone. That's Kobolds and Catacombs, right? Is that the one with
Yeah,
Spellstones in it? I don't mind the rest of the set, but the Spellstones are so annoying and such bad design that I don't think it'll ever get into a point in which it wouldn't have a quite significant negative effect in the arena. Also, is Kobolds and Catacombs the one with Fungomancer?
yeah,
I feel like
that
that
is.
fits. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that can all just stay away. I feel like that was the one expansion in terms of like the kind of effect that it had on the meta. Because remember, like the hunters got like ridiculous stuff with it, and I think they unnerfed that card, right? They unnerfed that spellstone too.
yeah, they did.
So yeah, so it was six
They originally
mana.
nerfed it to 6, and now it's
Yeah.
back to
So now it's a
5.
5 mana summon 2/3/3s unless you played a secret before with this card in your hand, then you summon like just more wolves. So I don't want to see that expansion again. I would put that like as bad, almost as Descent of Dragons if you just like stick it into a meta in terms of how unfun it makes the whole meta.
I agree. So my wish list is not very high. It's just anything that does include Descent of Dragons. Oh, much better. So much better. And very, very needed. We've had Descent of Dragons for way too long. Way,
Mm-hmm.
way, way too long. And the
Mm-hmm.
effect has been just like so. It's not objectively bad because there are a few things objectively bad, but I think a lot of people have found it frustrating.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So that's our just kind of. I wanted to talk through it just because it's happening next week, and I don't want something to happen next week without us having at least speculated on it. But really, we won't. Like, what's Blizzard gonna do? Tell us on Monday what's gonna happen on Wednesday? I mean, that kind of sounds like Blizzard actually. But I think what's more likely is that they're going to tell us on Monday or Tuesday or even on Wednesday that the patch that affects Arena and Battlegrounds will not be live for like a week or something. And so we have a little bit more time to spend in this current meta.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we're going to do our first ever deep fried meta on Battlegrounds. We had in the
Is
last
it the
month.
first one? I thought we had one
Did we have
before.
a deep fried meta on Battlegrounds?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Okay.
I don't know.
Did we
I
call
don't
it a
know.
deep fried meta? Maybe we did.
No, but it doesn't matter what we
All
call
right,
it.
all right, all
Maybe
right.
it
Fine,
does.
fine, fine.
Sure.
We're calling this one a deep fried meta. We're officially sticking Battlegrounds into the deep fried meta. If you don't know what deep fried meta is, we've done it since basically the start of the Lightforge podcast, which has got like 5 years ago. And it basically just means we are going deep into one very particular concept, whether it's affecting the meta right now specifically, or it's a foundational concept that affects every meta, or it's just a game design principle that affects like the fact that it's a card game, right? And we just dig into it. So today's is fairly specific, and it is going to tier 3 on 6 mana in Battlegrounds.
No, 5.
Sorry, on 5 mana.
You wrote that wrong. Now you can do. We can talk about on 6 as well. But really, what I want to talk about was odd timings, right? And this one shouldn't be that odd to you guys if you play a ton of BGs, although I would say a lot of people are still very uncomfortable doing this. If you watch streams, you'll see that a lot of top players, such as Victor, Wobbleweezy, Show, Purple, all of them have done it to great effect many times. But I want to explain the thought process behind it. How much you stand to lose slash gain. We want to break it down like we do with Arena, right? And what characters are good with this, what characters are bad with this, as in never do it with these characters, and why it's sort of important. So let's start off with why I want to be talking about this now. Because tiering up to level or tier 3 on 5 gold has been a thing for quite a while. But I would say that it is more popular nowadays than ever, and it is more effective nowadays than ever as well. I certainly see it quite often in my games, and part of the reason is just because of the way the meta has shifted. The meta these days in BGs has become macros or Sorlisks. It's super duper polar, and it's really become okay. You either have the the OP tier 6 strats, whether it's
I mean, I think
double
that's a
macro.
little exaggerated. I played
It's not
BGs
that-
for
no, no,
two
no, no.
nights.
It is the
I didn't
most
do either.
polarized.
That's not true. I did
I
one
mean-
of those each time. But the rest of the games I didn't, and I got plenty of firsts, and I got plenty of eighths, and I got plenty of fourths. Like, it's been fine. It's been fine playing beasts, It's been fine playing dragons.
Oh no, it's fine playing Beast, but Beast is a tier 6 strat a lot of times too.
Oh, okay.
Because of the mom, what is a mama bear? That's a tier 6, right?
Well, you could play
You're
beasts
using
without Mama Bear. You could do
Yeah,
Bear
sure,
and
you could.
Beasts.
Yeah, I would say you see Bear and Beast a lot less than Mama Beast these days.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot less, because of partly the way that people are leveling. So, what happens is, well, if one or even two people in your lobby, and I've seen like 3 people in the lobby, go Sorlisks, they don't deal damage. Like we talked about before, you can treat them as like a little bit higher than a ghost, because all they're gonna do is chunk you for maximum like 4
damage. Yeah.
4 damage is like the most that
Yep.
they're gonna do to you in the early / mid game.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So you don't got to worry about them. And then for the other people that are actually trying to win, because the Sorlisk strat doesn't usually win the lobby. It can win, but it usually doesn't. You want to be the first
I was about to
person.
say, I'm like, I've definitely lost to it in the late game.
Usually, right?
Yeah.
Usually. It's just like how Darryls don't usually win the lobby,
Yep.
but they still can. So if people are doing this very polarized strategy of either tier 6 strats or tier 1 strats, well, if you get the first shot at tier 6, if you are climbing faster, it certainly favors you. And because people are doing this tier 6, tier 1 kind of thing, the damage that you take in the early game, it doesn't matter as much because you're either taking very little damage or you're taking a ton of damage from these tier 6s. So you'd rather take that damage a little bit earlier, like front load that damage in order for you to be able to fight off that late game damage and win. So that's kind of why the leveling on 5 gold works. I would say a little bit better than it has in previous metas. Now, what does that mean, right? If you start off with a token, that's fantastic. Which is true for every single strat, let's face it. But if you start off with a token, you're able to sell that token after you level to 2 on 4 gold. So you level to 2 on 4 gold, and then on the next turn, you can sell the token and level, and that is great. Now you are on Tavern 3. If you don't get to start off with the token, that just means you're down a unit, down a gold, and you can still do that.
Make the comparison here to if you didn't do that. If you didn't do that, what you'd have is your remainder token and 2 tier 2 things, or like a tier 1 and a tier 2 thing. So you would have 3 things: half a token, let's say a tier 1.5 on average and a tier 2 thing. Instead, you have half a token.
Yeah. And what you want to do is obviously assess the tavern on 5 gold. If you have 2 good units, as in, two at least decent tier 2 units, a lot of the times you don't do that. A lot of the times you don't do this
You never
because
do this. When would you do this if you have 2 good like tier 2 units?
yeah, I would say pretty close to never. I don't know. There might be a scenario, but yeah, sure. I feel comfortable saying that you never do it. You only do it if you're presented with bad
Yeah.
option. Yeah, yeah.
Because this
And
alternative here is between a normal game and your game. But if you're not getting the normal game anyway, and you're just getting total crap, like I've been offered nothing better than a whatever the thing is that deals 1, the ghoul. That was like my best option, and the second option was even worse than a ghoul. So like, what am I doing? I have to roll, and then I would lose a minion, and so
yep.
I would end up with half a token. Oh, maybe not half a token. I would end up with a tier 1 unit, like a full tier 1 unit, including the token, and a tier 2 unit. And versus ending up with half of a tier 1 unit and being 1 level higher.
Yeah. So like the reasoning why you want to do this is just because uh by buying subpar units, you just end up losing faster. Or sorry, you end up losing slower rather than you saying, okay, I'm going to take the higher percentage play on the edge just a little bit, but this is going to be better for me overall. Like it feels bad, it feels a little bit scary, but you buying that ghoul and a 1 drop, that means you lost, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so little opportunity to recover from that. Meanwhile, on tier 3, on Tavern 3, not only do you get the first cut at those units, there are some really, really good foundational pieces that you can start picking up when everyone is still picking up like Zubats, right?
You can start making a comp. And remember, if you just pick a unit up on like 5, for example, that unit's going to stay with you for like at least 3 turns. Like you don't get to get rid of that unit and swap it for something else. So it's not just that you're going to lose the next turn. You lose the next turn anyway if you level. It's not just that you're going to lose the turn after that. You're going to lose that turn even if you like level and then buy 2-3 drops and get a good roll. It's that you're going to lose the turn after that too. And if you're buying 2 crappy units and you still have a token to get rid of, you may well lose the turn after that one too if you're leveling normally, like and trying to get on 4 on 9. So you're losing a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you do the math on sort of like if you're presented with bad options on 5 gold, and then if you say I'm going to buy that, and then I'm going to buy I'm going to get an average roll on the next roll. Other than you just leveling to tier 3, do you put off some damage? Do you save some face damage? Yes, you do, but you're so far behind in terms of leveling, in terms of you picking up those pieces, that it is super duper not worth it. And because you have leveled, you also open up like additional level timings that aren't available to other people. But this is why it is so good right now, and I want to highlight a couple of the characters that are.
Okay, before we get to the characters, I want to like run through
Sure.
mechanically what happens afterwards, right? So on turn 6, going back to my example, if you had crap,
Wait, turn 6.
sorry, turn 6, 6 mana. So if you had crap, let me just set it up first. So
6 mana or 5 mana?
We're setting it up. We're on 5 mana right now. We're going to get to 6 mana.
Okay.
So we're on 5 mana right now, and you've had a token to start with. Let's just say you've had a token. Keep things easy. If you don't have a token, you are even more incentivized. I mean, you are less incentivized to suicide level. So you see crap, you have to roll at least once, if not twice. When you see something good, you buy it. So now you have a tier 1 and a tier 2. Your tokens are still together, right? You have 2 half tier 1s and 1 tier 2. And then you may be able to get to set up your tier 2 with 1 extra roll. Maybe you don't. If you level, then you have half of a tier 1 left. Now, on the next turn, you are going to buy 2 things. You are either going to buy what we hope will be 2 tier 2s, realistically, let's just call it a tier 2 and a tier 1.5. So what you would have is a tier 1, a tier 1.5, and a tier 2 if you were doing it normally. What you would do, what you would have if you suicide leveled is half of a tier, and then hopefully one tier 3, and then one tier 2. So at this point, you are basically even. You are very close to even. I'd still take the first example over the second one, but you're basically even, and both are going to lose. But tempo-wise, you're basically even. And the turn after that, tier 2 still has to level, and so we'll get one additional tier 2 unit, whereas the suicide leveling one, and so that they end up with 4 units, and the suicide leveling one will not have to level. They can choose to tempo on that turn, if they want, get 2 3-drops that you can even do 1 extra roll for, and then they have 5 units of higher quality compared to the person who tried to do it normally. This is on 7 mana. So on the 6 mana turn, you're almost equal, still slight edge to doing things normally. By 7 mana, you are now, and on the same tier, you are now at a level in which you are significantly ahead on tempo compared to if you didn't. So
yeah.
You are down on tempo on like 1.5 turns. That's it. That is a very small amount of times to be down on tempo, especially if you know, because you see your matchup, that your opponent's not going to hit, or you just look at your lobby and you see a bunch of Sorreless players, that if you know that your opponents aren't going to hit you very hard. So that's the math behind it, and how quickly you get back up to speed. Because remember, at this point, it's not just that the Suicide Leveler is better on tempo. The Suicide Leveler is also 2 turns ahead on getting to turn 4. So the Suicide Leveler also has basically banked 2 mana that they will use whenever they level up to turn 4, to tier 4. So the Suicide Leveler is like really ahead at the cost of
extraordinarily ahead.
Yeah. At the cost of, keep in mind, you're going to lose anyway with even if you play things normally. So right. You're going to lose the damage from the hero itself, which is like 1 or 2 damage. But if you had played things normally, you may have taken out 1 or 2 minions. Let's just call it 2 health difference per turn. So you get 2 health difference for 1 turn, and then maybe 1 more health the turn after that when you're about even on tempo. So for the cost of 3 health on average, the difference of 3 health, you've banked 2 mana, and you're ahead on tempo by the end of turn 7. I mean, by the end of mana 7. That's a big get for dealing 3 damage.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. I think 3 is a little, because I did the calculations as well. I was a little bit less optimistic than you. Like, it was like 4 extra damage, right? This isn't
okay.
So it's about 4 extra damage than you should have taken.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it can be more. And look, if you have the misfortune of like facing Millhouse on 6 mana, well, like you were kind of screwed anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all about the extra damage that you take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about 4 extra damage. So to those of you guys who are like, oh man, I take so much damage by doing this, you would have taken a lot of damage anyway. You were going to take.
Look at Homunculus, which is a decent pick. That's just 1 extra health for 2 damage. So you should be getting like 2 extra health for your 4 damage in terms of your by the end of this whole thing. You're getting way more than 2 extra health. You're literally getting an entire additional unit, which is going to be like at least 6 health, like at least 6 stats, if not 7 stats.
I mean, this is what Lich Bazile's hero power is all based on, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at her exchange, and she's giving up her hero power, or like that is her hero power, right? That takes up the slot of her hero power. Meanwhile, other heroes have a choice of doing this while still maintaining whatever hero power they still have. And that's what makes it pretty powerful. And I think by laying it out in this way, you'll see that it is an exchange that makes sense a lot of the times. And I have been doing it a bit more often, just even when it's just, let's say, like, I don't settle for a decent 2-drop and then all 1-drops. It's got to be either a synergistic one or at least 2 decent 2s. otherwise, because I've done this calculation in my head as well. I'm just like, it's really not worth it for me to take anything less than a fairly good tavern or fairly good units on 5 gold.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like let's just go, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that like if I want to win the lobby, I can't just be falling behind, taking chip damage here or there,
Yep.
not having a comp, being like being behind or staying at the same tavern as other people. Let's try to push this advantage. Let's turn my life into a resource
Mm-hmm.
at the very beginning when it's much safer for me to do that rather than later on when people are high rolling and dealing 20 damage like left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now let's look at the scenario in which you wouldn't want to do that, right? So I don't want people to walk away from this thinking like, oh, most of the time I suicide level. No, you shouldn't. So let's take the exact opposite example and say you only have one unit. Let's say you have a 2/3, a pretty normal unit. On 5 mana, you can either sell your 2/3 in order to suicide level, or you can sell your 2/3 in order to get 2/2 drops. Two tier 2 minions. So now, what your difference is you either have no minions, or you have 2 tier 2 minions on this turn. That's going to be the difference of, I don't know, like, more health. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
Like, more than
health.
2 or whatever health. That's going to be the difference of, like, let's say 3 or 4 health. Then, the next turn, over here, you're going to get a tier 3 and a tier 2 minion. And in the original one, like going normally, you're going to get 2 tier 2 minions, maybe a tier 2 and a tier 1, tier 2 and a tier 1.5 minion. So now you have 3 tier 2 minions and a 1.5 minion, a tier 1.5 minion. And if you suicide leveled, you would have 1 tier 3 minion and 1 tier 2 minion. Again, this is a huge difference. You are going to once again lose 3 to 4 health. The turn after that, this one has to level and then take a tier 2 minion. So you have 4 tier 2 minions and 1 tier 1.5 minion. On the other hand, you will have 2 tier 3 minions and 2 tier 2 minions on the suicide leveling. So now you've evened it out. So on turn 7 in this scenario, you've evened it out. Now you're still 2 mana ahead whenever you decide to go to tier 4. So it's not like you got nothing out of it, but you've taken, at this point, 8 damage in order to be at the same place. Whereas in the other scenario that we talked about, you've taken 4 damage, that's half the amount of damage, and you ended up at a place that was significantly higher in tempo. Like, the first scenario that we went over was basically the ideal scenario, and it was a no-brainer. You suicide level there. In this scenario, though, you are giving up 8 health to be in nearly the same place. Is it doable? I'm not going to say it's like never not doable, but 8 health, you take that 8 health hit, that's the difference between you being 7th place and you being like 4th or 5th place. Yeah, if things go wrong from that point forward. And that's a lot. So is your 2 extra mana going to compensate for that? I think mostly not. That's why mostly people don't recommend you do that if you have like a decent tavern on 5 mana. But it just shows that there's still a spectrum. This isn't like a new discovery from the people who've run a lot of simulations and math and play this, that this is right most of the time. This is right some of the time. It's not an insignificant amount of time anymore. It used to be the case that this was the right move like 1 out of every, I don't know, 12 games you play. Like now it's probably the right move at 1 out of every like 3 or 4 taverns that you play. Mm-hmm. And that means it's a very valid strategy. But don't think that this is the normal like odds-on strategy. If you like judge your 5 mana turn tavern, like look at it, look at your situation, look at the tavern situation. Because remember, if you have a token, you're giving up way less. You're giving up just 1/1. If you don't have a token, you're giving up a 2/3 or something, right? Or when I say you don't have a token, I mean you don't have a token when you have a decent minion. If you don't have a token, but you just have a 1/1, like you have a pink man and you can find a demon, like okay, fine, right? You basically have just screwed yourself anyway. But like really, you have to evaluate your situation, and it's not that like you do it like I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 runs, and you'll get the hang of it. It's not that hard of an evaluation to make of your relative position on 5 mana. It's the third turn. Not much is happening, right? Not much could have happened.
Yep. And once again, this is one of those things where we're assuming you're going to be playing BGs more than just one game, and you want to make the best uh, calculation, the best decision every single time given the situation. So yes, you are introducing a little bit of danger, a little bit of uncomfortableness. You have to get used to that. I also want to address kind of why this has also shot up in popularity. And part of that, outside of the meta, is the introduction of Kael'thas. Kael'thas is probably the best character to do the suicide level, the leveling on 5 gold, because he builds up momentum and he takes it into that pivotal 6 gold turn in which you are able to guarantee yourself a +2/+2 on something. So, like ADWCTA, during your calculation, you were saying like, okay, on the 6 gold turn, here's how it is.
Yeah,
that +2/+2
it's
really
huge.
It's huge.
That +2/+2 is like better than an extra tier 1 minion.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you just get it extra. And so like you're good. You're like leveled off against your opponents.
Yeah, it's we all know how good Kael'thas is. I think it's number 3 right now in HS replay. Yeah, it's number 3. It's a little bit above Nozdormu. They're pretty neck and basically Daryl and Kael'thas and Nozdormu are just so close together. It's ridiculous. So you can see how good it is. But with Kael'thas, he is the perfect character to do it, just because of the momentum that he's able to bring and his ability to equalize much faster than everyone else. And then with him, it's about building that momentum and then snowballing off of that, because his hero power doesn't stop. You can keep building it up. And there are so many things on tier 3 that with a +2/+2 becomes a lot of times more than just a normal +2/+2. Look at Reflector Bot. Yeah, Bronze Warden, even Imp Gang Boss, right?
Yeah.
Imp Gang Boss with a +2/+2 that early is ridiculous. It's insane. So,
and a lot of these things are ones you want to take anyway, so it's not like you're going out of your strategy or whatever to do it. These are also ones that you can build off of to make like real comps.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are Kael'thas, and if you see just kind of an like a so-so-ish tavern on 5 gold,
yeah,
it's definitely correct for you to level at that point. Like definitely, because your ability to recover is so ridiculously high. You're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't do it. Now, there's other heroes that are good with the suicide level as well. Curator is one of them, just because if you have the amalgam, you're able to kind of just buff everything. So let's say you pick up a Houndmaster, right? A lot of times, if you get the Houndmaster or you get the Twilight Emissary with other heroes, you're like, I don't really want this 4/3 or just a 4/4. Well, no, you get the +2/+2 just because you have that. So it adds extra flexibility. You can do it with Nas, but this requires Nas not getting anything previous to that. So it's very rare for this to happen with a Nas, because once again, Nas has those extra rolls. So yeah, I would say that the main driver of this has been Kale. And what does that do to the meta as well? Well, if you're facing like a Kael'thas, and your tavern is like meh or just like okay-ish, and I've seen this happen as well. Like Kael'thas will auto tier up to 3, and the person that they're facing, they're like, okay, let's go. Let's do it, right? It's like, you're doing it. Obviously, you have more of an advantage than me, but I basically just get like both of us get a free ride, right? Let's both of us get on this train, not deal any damage, increase the chances that both of us are going to win the lobby. But that's cool.
Sign a non-aggression pact with your friendly Kael'thas.
Basically it. So I have seen this as well, in which because I've been looking at lobbies, and I think Victor's been popularizing this as well. It's like, oh, Happy Cow, level with me. I think Happy Cow is now the official emote of please level with me. Um, my emote game is not very strong though, but once again, these are things that shift the meta. One character gets introduced, it's better at one thing. By doing that thing, it influences other characters to either level or not level, etc., etc. And then it just changes the way that lobbies are played. So that's why you see it a lot more often as well. Kale is perfect for it. People recognize it. People recognize that the meta is very polarized. They do it more often with Kale. Whoever is facing Kale is going to do it more often as well, and so on and so forth. And that's how we get these sort of crazy lobbies where suddenly, you're facing Kale 5 turns down the road, and you're like, okay, well, cool. I just picked up a module for my security rover or for my egg, and he's sitting there with like a buffed up like cow ghost already, and you're just like, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? And that can definitely happen. Kael'thas can just uh sort of supercharge the early and mid game, which leads to a big snowball into them being able to get to tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 faster than everyone, and get the best pickings from those tiers while also getting the +2/+2. So yeah, that's
I
one of those
can't
things.
wait until they restore tier 6 to be 1 mana more expensive. I can't wait. Because you knew, like, these games, they don't
Uh,
come out like just on, like, someone did a lot of math before they made the game and then they tweaked it
yeah.
around. And I don't know what the original math is. I haven't done like a huge deep dive into the Battlegrounds resource system because it's like it's very different than a normal card game. Because it's not a card game, right? It's a auto chess game. It's an auto battler game. But I get the feeling that tier 6 was supposed to mathematically have been at that higher level. And that based on complaints that tier 6 was useless, and their data that says no one was going to tier 6, they lowered it. But now that they've made tier 6 like just better, um, especially when they like, bumped down a bunch of old tier 6 minions and created some ridiculous new ones, like Caligos and the fish. They should
The
really
fish. Yeah,
restore the appropriate mana cost of that tier 6.
I agree. I wouldn't mind it. Although, really, something that would help out is just putting better units. Not even just better, but like mini scaling or just more useful units in 4 and 5. And
Mm-hmm.
um,
I think
look, it's
4
easy for
needs
me to
more scaling units and 5 needs more tempo units. Like that's such a big difference
totally
right
agree.
now. Like,
Because right now 4 is the tempo
yeah,
tier, right? Where you have high main, you got egg, and you got but no no actual scaling. You have buffs. You have a ton of buffs on 4, but
yeah.
like not much scaling. And then 5, that's where all of the techie stuff
Mm-hmm.
is, right? Where you have stuff that is really not independently, you have like Sneeds, but like really no independently good stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but you have all the tech, and we need a little bit more of the
yeah.
mixing, like
Because
more tempo on 5, and more scaling on 4. I definitely
yeah,
agree with
like
that.
tier 3 has more scaling units than tier 4. That's not right. Like on a by percentage.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
not. They may not scale as well as tier 4 ones do, but like they do scale.
yeah.
And that's weird.
It is really weird.
um,
But that's where we're at right now. So look, if you are looking at your games and you are not tiering up to 3 on 5 gold, or you're not even really considering it once every, I would say, 4 to 5 games, you're probably not doing it as much as you should be. It, if you're doing it significantly less than that, I would say it's probably just wrong. It's probably just wrong.
mhm.
Um, you might go. Here's the thing: we need a large enough sample size. You might go many games without doing it, and it might be correct. But just realize that in the meta that we're in right now, which rewards leveling it fast because of Soreless players and because of just the fact that you are going to be facing macros and mama bears and calgoses at the end. So your kind of like dinky, tier 4, tier 5 comps, they can win. I'm not saying they can never win, but if you're just playing the odds here, they're probably not going to win most of the time. So you want to be able to get there.
I mean, if you're on tier 4 or tier 5, you shouldn't be trying to win.
Yeah.
Like, you should recognize that if you win as a tier 4 or tier 5 comp, you've lucked out in terms of what your opponents have been doing. Or, like, you've literally lucked out by, like, high rolling versus them and, like, knocking them out.
Yep.
As someone who does that a lot, it happens more frequently than you think. But when you get to the end, you're always like, whew, my competition ain't so hot. That's lucky me, right? Not like, oh, this is what I expected when I got to top 3. All right. So that's anything else you want to add about the suicide leveling tier 3 on 5?
No, that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
That is deep fried meta. I think we fried this one pretty deep, but it is this is kind of like when we talk about this stuff, because this is the battleground curve, it reminds me of the early Lightforge podcast where we went really deep on like what does a 3-drop do, or like difference between a 3-2 and a 2-3 on 2, which is better? And you're like, that's very specific, but at the same time, that's the curve, right? This is applicable to almost every game you play, unlike some later game decision making. It works across any hero almost, and it matters. And so this is the stuff that you get the most bang for your buck by delving really deeply into.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to a question from the GOAT, brought to you by our patrons, our top patrons. 4P, Aaron LS2, Brand New, Changian, Dan F, Doug A, Eric L, Feldy Locks, Joel T, Jordan W, Math and Carnage, RV Night Train Tour, Jado, and Yin. Thank you guys so much for helping us keep the lights on here at the Lightforge. And today's question from the GOAT is just what is happening right now in the world, and specifically in America, because last week we did a Lightforge and stuff was starting, but it was like, people are protesting another unjust killing, just gets more and more ridiculous, of a unarmed black man, and now it's been like, this has been a full week of nonstop protests all over the country, all over the world. Not necessarily protests, but that the activism has really kicked into a different gear, and it has kicked in from all sides. This is no longer it didn't even start as just like a pure like left-wing thing or a pure like black people thing. It's just been very widespread at this point, and it really feels like we're at this turning point of something.
Definitely. And I think the reason we need to talk about this is just because, like you said, the nation has changed dramatically since just last week. You would think that, so George Floyd was killed on May 25th, and it took a while for things to build up. Mm-hmm. And in this past week, the country has had very uncomfortable, dramatic, but very necessary conversations, ranging from systemic racism to police brutality, to just the role of protest in general. And I think, look, we talk about children's card games, we talk about a lot of this stuff, but it would be irresponsible of us to not address what's going on in the world, because I think we are at a crossroads. And I know that's a cliched saying, but it really does feel like this is the conversation that we've tried to have as a society for a while, but really haven't had. And this might just be it.
Yeah. I don't know if we haven't had it. I feel like we've had it and everyone's like, okay, cool. And then, stuff gets very incrementally better rather than a more large-scale revolutionary type thing, which it feels like this may be. Like, that's what I'm thinking that this may be. I'm hoping that this may be a good point in which we really re-examine the role of the police in a society that is, no, the role of the police was set up historically and in cases in many different countries for a different era, and its practices and its culture and its roles are all ingrained about a different era. And it was from that era that all this systemic racism, I say from that era and many eras past, that all this systemic racism kicks in, and it gets deeply ingrained, and people grow up into this culture. People are trained in this culture. Training programs are set up in this culture, and it kind of perpetuates a cycle within the police, not just with individual police officers, but also within the entire system itself. That's why it's called systemic racism, right? And then also with the system that regulates or doesn't regulate the police departments. And this is why you see the protests coming out, right? And it really it shines a light on the reaction of the police, right? To the times when it is peaceful protest, to the times when there are rioting, to the times when there is looting. And it shines a light as to what the police do in each of these scenarios, and the degree to which they do similar things no matter what happens, on different ratios and different percentages. But that's kind of, like, in my view, I think the police are set up to be the force, right? They are the physical force that is the arm of the government that applies pressure, physical pressure and coercion to make sure people, like law and order, right? To make sure order, like really more order than law. Law is for courts and stuff. It's to maintain order, and so they have to be good at that. But we're at the point now in which we use the police for so many things, when maybe our number one desire as a society and even as a government is not necessarily order. Order is up there somewhere, but it may not be number one or number two, or even if order is number one and there are other goals, they have to be in two. And the police is really not their job, or to the extent that it is their job, maybe it shouldn't be their job to do some of these other things. I don't know. I've had, in my history, I've had a lot of negative run-ins with the police, all of which are in some degree my fault. I'll take full blame on that one, but the issue is not like whether, like, oh, ADWCTA violated the law and the popo got on him. Like, that was clearly the case. I'm not arguing that. I've never argued it, but the degree to which the police involvement was, the method in which they did things. I've had blatant acts of racism. Like, police have literally like told me that I should go back to China, like after having talked with me, and I sound like this. You know, this is not even like, and I think about how they treat like immigrants and people with accents. And this is not, I've never been in any situation that's remotely close to violence. I'm not trying to equate my situation with that of black people in this country and elsewhere, but it's part of the systemic racism within police departments that allows these kind of actions to happen. And when one of the more egregious times that this happened in my life, I thought about just reporting the police officer and saying, look, someone should know that a representative of the New York City government and the New York City Police Department is out there doing things like this and you know, saying things like this. And after looking through the internet, there's nothing you could do about it. The filing a report will give you retribution, is what I found out, both from like people on Reddit who claim to be the police and people on Reddit who claim to, you know, suffer at the hands of police. It's just kind of all this one consensus that you should not report officers for doing things that are that they shouldn't be doing when it comes to things like racial justice and just, you know, them saying or doing things. And so I didn't report it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who didn't report it. I have probably a lot more resources than most people in those situations. So if I felt like I should not be reporting it, then far more people have not reported it. And then you look at the case like what happened in Minneapolis, and of the 4 officers involved, 2 had rather extensive records of misconduct. Like, to actually have a record of misconduct itself, like any record of misconduct, is quite big because of the amount of misconduct that would not have gotten reported. And so I just want to highlight that. Like, if people look at it, it's like, oh, 7 cases of misconduct over the past however many years as a police officer. That doesn't sound too bad. No, that's 7 that were so ridiculous that they got reported. That 7 was probably like 40, maybe 100, maybe 1,000. Because if
Yeah,
anybody looks up or asks people whether you should report a police officer, the answer comes back in all directions from all sides, with all different types of agendas and no agendas. Just the practical matter is you can't report a police officer or nothing good will come of it.
yeah. So, uh, I think it's important that you like. Well, first of all, it's important that you shared, your experience with it as well. Just because it's true. This issue, and I think why we see this boiling over and the protests becoming so passionate is just because, like, yes, this was sparked by George Floyd's death, but this has been a long time coming. Like, revolutions and sweeping changes don't come about because of just one isolated event. It's one thing that sets off something that has been boiling over for a long time. And you talked about police brutality, and about systemic racism, and in some ways they are very much so intertwined in this issue, but they are also separate in a lot of other issues. And if you think that this is just about George Floyd, you
No.
do not understand why people are protesting here. Like, if you don't understand that this is about police brutality, it's about the identity of our country and what we hold ourselves up as. That you need to add Ahmaud Arbery, you need to add Breonna Taylor, you need to add all of these other cases and all the other cases that we don't even know about into it. And that is why we are where we are
Yeah.
at.
And this is not I mean, it shouldn't be a divisive issue. I don't think it is when it comes to reforming the police justice system. Like, that's why you see police in all these cities like taking a knee with the protesters at various points during the protests. Um, it's because the police know better than anybody the extent to which the system is set up. They may think that some parts of it are more justified than the average American thinks that it is justified, or than the victims of these systemic practices think is justified. But they know the facts, and so it's not a question of whether the police need significant reform. And I don't mean a particular police officer or anything. I mean the entire system of how what powers police departments have and what jobs they are given and what jobs they are expected to give. Because if you look at any city's budget, the police department is huge, has a huge budget. But then you think about what you ask the police department to do. Like, whenever something happens, anything happens, police is top of the list of who you call. And or if you ask the government, that may be who they want you to call, and that may just it shouldn't be the case. And I think we're past the point in which we are a society in which we think that would be the appropriate response or the appropriate organ of the government to respond to these incidents.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the core. Like, I think what really is driving a lot of the emotions of these protests and from the Black community as well. So Hassan Minaj, who has the
Yeah.
Patriot Act and the show, a very funny guy, well written show, came out with a 12-minute video that says, "We cannot stay silent about George Floyd." He made a lot of great points, as he typically does. But I think the one quote that really sums up the frustrations from the Black community is this. He says, "We as a society, us Americans, we love seeing how high a Black person can ascend in America, but we have done nothing to raise the floor. You don't just get to own the country's excellence, you have to own its failures."
Yeah.
And I think that is really speaking to what is happening and the disconnect here, and the disparity where, look, we idolize people like Jay-Z, Michael Jordan, and we say, wow, look how successful a black man or, you know, a black woman, look at Beyonce, look at Michelle Obama, et cetera, et cetera. Um, look how successful they have become, and we celebrate them, right? Like, dude, everyone wants to be Michael Jordan, Jay-Z, right? Patrick Mahomes, whoever. Like, you look at these uh famous celebrities and athletes, and they are the epitome of cool. Everyone wants to be like them. We idolize them. We hold them up on a pedestal. The ceiling for Black Americans is ridiculously high, but to some extent, that has been used as an excuse almost to not raise the floor for Black communities at all. And it's very comfortable for us as a nation to look at the Michael Jordans and Jay-Z's and be like, wow, we did such a good job. The system produced these people. And to some extent, yes, but it's easy for us to look at the Jordans and the Jay-Z's and say, okay, the system's good. If it can produce these people, then it's not as bad, right? Like, if Black Americans can achieve that level of success, but it's not about the Jordans and the Jay-Z's. It's about the community and everyone. And
Yeah.
if you look at all the statistics, it's really frightening. And it's been like this not because of just sort of, you know, some internal failings from the community. And I tweeted about this earlier in the week as well. It's come about because of systemic racism and programs put into place, whether from redlining, whether it's denying them housing, whether it's denying them loans, throughout, you know, the hundreds of years of our history, in order to separate them, marginalize the Black community, and set themselves up for failure. And that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten, and why the conversation will never be simple, right? It's never simple. But I thought that was a great quote. I thought that really encapsulated what is the issue here and how, like, it can be so muddy, you know, like, how can we have this many successful Black people that we idolize, but at the same time, the 99.999%, you know, we have this huge disparity in wealth. And
Well, okay,
I mean,
it's not that bad. It's not like 99.99%.
yeah. But like,
but it is,
I mean,
it is
here's
a
the
stark
thing.
difference compared to other
Right.
other races, and especially when it comes to like police deaths. That's
Yeah.
that's a really striking statistic. Because you
Yeah.
feel like the police, you can compare it to arrest rates, you can compare it to you know, criminality, and it's one thing to say like, oh, a lot of crimes happen in Black neighborhoods, and so you're going to get a disproportionate amount of these cases. It's another to actually compare the stats on these cases and be like, all right, you're a Black person, you're just more likely to get killed by the police. And looking at the statistics, I mean, it made me feel a little better about my situation. You know, Asian men are three times less likely to be killed by the police than a white man.
That's because we're the model minority.
Yeah, I feel like the police aren't really going to shoot me. But it just the statistics are really stark. I want to focus on the other part of what the quote Merps brought up from Hazam Minaj, which is that you own the failings of the country you're in. And I know a lot of our audience is international, and hey, we could talk about how this issue is an issue too internationally. The U.S. may be particularly bad with it, but we are hardly the only one, having been abroad to many places and, you know, having seen many cultures. Systemic racism against Black people is not a uniquely American thing by a long shot, although we've probably systemized it more than other places, or than most other places. There's definitely places that are worse than ours. And especially these days with China taking over more and more of the world's economy and more in charge of the development of third world countries and of Africa in particular. I think you're seeing the not like systemic, let's call it cultural, the cultural racism that Chinese people and Chinese culture has against black people really like more come to light. And that's a whole separate issue of how China and the Chinese people and the Chinese business interests are going to address that. But setting that aside, for Americans, like, you buy into the system. It doesn't matter if your ancestors were not slave owners, if your ancestors, you know, never like did anything affirmatively to, you know, hold the black man down. It doesn't matter if you are a recent immigrant into this country. Like, if you want to be a part of this country, if you are looking for citizenship, or if you have become a citizen, I was born in Beijing, but I'm a US citizen. You own the country's failings as well. You don't just get to ride on the successes. You don't just get to say, okay, from this point forward, you know, this is my country. From this point behind, or we're gonna ignore the history of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really good statement, and especially within the Asian community, there is, I think, less so among young people, but definitely among older people, and also to some extent among young people, there is racism against black people. One of the officers in George Floyd's case, one of the 4 officers that are being charged, is Asian, is Hmong American, and you know, it doesn't, like, just because you are also a minority doesn't mean that you're not racist. And in particular, with respect to Asians, I feel like a lot of the culture is very anti-black.
Yeah.
Not just anti-African Americans, but also anti, like, anyone who looks black, like Indians, which was always the craziest thing to me. Like, how much Asian culture dislikes Indians. But that's a story for a different day. And it's a moment to reflect on your culture and your community, and things that you can maybe do to help shift that or to change it. And it's also a way of saying, like, I know a lot of our audience are young ish, and are, you know, this feels like kind of a issue that's being done to them, right? Like, the police are acting on the protesters. The police are killing black people. But there's things that we can do, and that we are all, in some degree, passively responsible for within the wider culture. Like, if you don't think you have influence on your parents and your relatives, you're wrong. You may not be able to control their behavior or their thoughts, but, you know, when people find out that one of their relatives or loved ones is gay, they're so much more likely to be okay with gay people.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's changed about, you know, what gay people do or what they are or what the Bible says. They're just more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So
once again, this is why I think it's important for us to address it, and I think why it's important for everyone to have these conversations with themselves, because it's just like what ADWCTA says. It doesn't matter if you look at yourself and say, well, I'm not racist, so cool, I've sort of done my part, right? Like, that's great. I'm not racist. I don't have anything against black people. Let me just sort of stay out of it. Nothing more needs to be done here. If you're part of this country, or if you have benefited from Americana in any way, right? Like, just, I mean, think about what black culture has provided in terms of music, in terms of art, in terms of entertainment. Entertainment has taken so much from black culture. I don't mean taken in a bad way, right? It's like black
cultural appropriation.
But that's the thing. If you have been influenced by this at all, or if you're just a part of the nation, this is the thing that Hassam Minhaj is trying to instill in all of us. It's just like, you benefit so much from this, so you can't sort of just be like, oh, okay, but the racism, that's not, you know, I'm not racist, I don't need to own that. That's other people.
Like, I'm like against racism, right? Even that, like, it has to be more, because this is, especially in America, this is a rot that is, you know, we call it the American original sin, right? Baked into the Constitution, that black people were unequal. Yeah, okay, we've technically changed that on paper, but slavery is within living memory of I don't know if it's actually within living memory of anyone in America, but it's close. I don't know. I think the last person it was within living memory may have died a few years ago or something. But
No, but there are still people living today that remember times in which they could not go to facilities, right? Like that's still
segregate. Yeah.
within
Oh, that's with definitely
that's still
within.
within one
That's within
generation.
many living. Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's within one generation. That's many people remember that. On both sides.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Where you either like legally weren't allowed to, be in same facilities, like schools, or you just weren't allowed to be in there, or you might find a bat to your head, or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
This is very real for some people. Like, we talk about this, and it's easy for us to see how far we've progressed as a society and be comfortable with that, while kind of pushing this stuff off to the side.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is to explain it is that it's a very recent phenomenon. So we're all like in the middle of this historical change in how race relations like work, and in America, America's a very young country, in how the justice system and how the relationship between the government and minorities work. Like this is all very new, and it's been done a certain way for so long that there's always going to be legacies of it. And this is not a, oh, it's here because of this reason. No, it's here because most of the reason why it was here was racism, and we've formally disavowed the racism. So let's get rid of all the things that stemmed from it, that's still being impacted to it, that still causes the effect of it. um I do want to emphasize that this is not like saying like, all police like hate black people. The vast majority of police may be totally, non-racist people and non-racist in their performance of their tasks. But how many of them, what percentage of them are anti-racist? And what
Yeah.
percentage of them are willing to challenge their own structure that is systemically racist, that I think most people agree. And if they didn't, I think a lot of people were educated over the course of the past 2 weeks about the history and the present. Um, and that's what the change is pushing for. Like, it's not a. I feel like this is why this moment in history is so important, because this is less of a us versus them kind of mentality, even if certain people would try to frame it as such. And I mean that on both sides. This is more of a wide awareness among all types of people moment, in which we finally reach that critical mass in which this was an issue that, like, just wasn't at the prominent forefront of people's minds and should have been. And because of really George Floyd, and probably, like, in all honesty, the fact that everyone was cooped up for so long with the coronavirus, all this energy has just kind of exploded out into something that is so obviously wrong with this country, that we can all kind of like agree on. um
Yeah.
and to stretch it beyond just, let's not put people in chokeholds, and to actually get um some reform, like deep rooted reforms, onto police departments and their role in this country, and how they train their people and what they're expected to do and how they do it.
Yep. So this is our attempt at having the beginnings of a conversation, that try to address what the protests are about and why we have these conversations in the country. It's going to be impossible, and it's impossible for us to talk about all things, because it you're just dealing with so much history, and so many events and so much tension. But we did feel it was important to talk about it, and I think that, one thing to definitely stress is that, keep on educating yourself, keep on considering the issues and considering where we are as a culture, where we are as a community, uh, past events such as these. Um, Personally, I made a donation to a couple of organizations about a week ago, and I told myself, what I need to do is keep this up, even
Mm-hmm.
beyond sort of, when these events are just trending on Twitter. If you're protesting, make sure you stay safe. COVID-19 is still a
Yeah.
thing, so make sure that you are staying safe. That if you're having these conversations and trying to let your voice be heard, make sure you do it in a way that is productive and
Mm-hmm.
safe.
And in
And
all honesty, like if people are doing things that are not productive, like stop them, because you know what happens quite frequently when the police try to stop them, and the police will try to stop them because that is outside the bounds of legal protest. So
yeah,
you don't want that to happen. And if you're closer to the action, like try to diffuse the situation before people who are less good at diffusing the situation with weapons come to try to diffuse the situation.
yep, okay, all right,
All
that's
right.
that.
That is the Lightforge podcast. We will be back to talking about children's card games, hopefully with more information as Blizzard releases either the patch, which will address Arena and Battlegrounds, or some information about the patch that's coming after next week's patch about that. So, and if people are thinking there's not a lot of arena content happening in the last few episodes, we did this on purpose because we had a lot of arena content before that, and we're really trying to do a double like arena battlegrounds kind of podcast these days. And frankly, nothing's happened in the arena in the last 3 weeks, so we're not talking about it as much. And but as soon as the rotation happens, we'll be geared up again for arena discussion and meta discussion. And same with battlegrounds when another major change happens in battlegrounds. So stay tuned. I feel like next week's gonna be a big one. Until then, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merp. See you guys.